Welcome to another episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, interview relatives of famous people. My famous relative, Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune. I think that kind of qualifies to have a podcast with other relatives. Today, I'm really excited because I'm a huge fan of the Andy Griffith show and the fact that Andy Griffith was his most amazing actor. And today I have his daughter, Dixie Griffith. She's going to talk about her life and about life as Sheriff Taylor's daughter, and I'm excited to have Dixie on today. And because Andy was a North Carolina guy, I want to remind you, if you're looking for the perfect family vacation, to go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's where my hometown is, in Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Perfect family vacation, 60, 70 miles of beach, I think 90 golf courses, 2,000 restaurants. It's a great family vacation if you happen to have an autistic child or sensory sensitive child. It's a great place also. You can learn more about that on Traveling the Spectrum on Peacock. Again, visit myrtlebeach.com. Okay, let's welcome our guest, Dixie Griffith.
Relatively Famous podcast with Chip White.
Dixie, welcome to Relatively Famous.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm sure you hear this a bazillion times a day, a year. I'm a huge fan of your dad's and of Andy Griffith show. He looked a lot like my dad did when my dad was that age. So it was kind of like, I felt like I was watching my father on TV, even though it wasn't.
I get that, yeah.
So, what is the best childhood memory you have of where, I don't know, were you guys in North Carolina? Where were you living when it was?
We grew up during the school year. We were in California. We moved out there when the show started and basically lived in California. However, we spent all our summers on the Outer Banks on Roanoke Island. Summertime, carefree, fun, had a great old time, and then the school year in California.
I love the Outer Banks. What's your biggest impression still today of the Outer Banks, and have you been there lately?
Gosh, I used to go down every summer. Well, as a child, I did go down every summer. And then in the last maybe 20 years, I'd go down to visit. There'd be reunions for the Lost Colony, for the outdoor theater that my mom and dad both performed in. And then I did as well as a teen. And so just having those summers down there was just absolutely the best thing ever. We were just, we would go out on the boat every weekend. We'd be out on the boat and water skiing, playing volleyball. We had a blast. We had a blast. And the summer memories stick out more than anything else as far as, growing up. And my dad was playing volleyball. He was just a normal Joe. People didn't really pay that much attention to him, except the tourists. The people that lived there were just, he was the buddy, the guy next door or whatever. But it was a huge tourist location. And so the tourists are the ones that kind of, got all gaga about him. So
I can relate to that. When we go home and Vanna's with us, and especially in the summer, the local people, they'll say hi, but it's the tourists that are like, oh my God, I just saw Vanna White. And it's like, well, yeah, she's from here.
I'm a little starstruck, it's like, ooh, yeah. Who doesn't love Vanna, for crying out loud, right?
Yeah, she's a phenomenon. Like your dad. His career spanned such a big genre. He was an amazing actor that people don't even think about. The movies that he did. And I remember the first movie or role I saw him in where it was outside of Andy Griffith. I was a teenager, and he was a bad guy. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this Andy Griffith, he just murdered that guy, you know, and they were like motorcycle guys going through the bottle or something.
I Pray for the Wildcats, probably with William Shatner and Robert Reed. Yeah, he did. He played a bad dude many times, and he was good at it. He was good at bad.
Yeah, I was just talking with Bill Fields, he was actually our first guest here at the comic book shop. We're in a comic book shop, by the way. And we were talking about A Face in the Crowd, and it's literally on my phone on Films to Watch. And Bill was saying he got robbed, man. He should have won an Oscar for that.
You know, I 100% agree. And I'll tell you a quick little aside. It turned out that Elia Kazan was also doing On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando that same time. Marlon Brando, I believe, won the Academy Award for On the Waterfront. And who knows what the politics were at that time. But I agree. He absolutely should have won an Oscar for that performance. It was astounding, you know, mind-blowing.
Now, you said you acted some at the Lost Colony. Did you want to pursue, or do you still pursue acting? Did you want to follow in your dad's footsteps?
No. Being in the Lost Colony was more fun, and I didn't have a speaking role at all. I was just part of the crowd. I was a colonist child. I graduated to colonist woman. But no, the closest I got to any of that was becoming a wardrobe apprentice in 1977. I graduated high school, and my dad was filming a couple of movies up in Big Bear Lake. And I got to be a wardrobe apprentice and worked on those two movies. And I had the opportunity to pursue that and get in the union and everything like that. But you know, it just wasn't me. You know, that's not what I wanted to do. You know, really. So no. I mean, I do. You know, now actually, the last 7 years. I go to Mayberry events around the country, mostly in the eastern portion of the country. And I dress up as one of the characters. I dress up as Skippy, the fun girl from Mount Pilot, and do parades. And you know, there are a lot of Mayberry events that go on throughout the year. And so I do participate in those. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I did that anonymously at the request of a friend who said, oh, yeah, you need to be Skippy. She was Daphne and Skippy. I mean, they were only in 3 episodes, but people know them very well. And so I've been dressing up like Skippy for 7-8 years now. And it's really fun. But nobody knew that my dad was my dad for a couple of years, and then somebody kind of caught on to it, and so now the cat's out of the bag. But you know what? It's great to be there because you know it's multifold or multifaceted. Because you know, first off, I get to see how the impact that my dad had on so many people. You know, and it's a wonderful way to get to kind of honor him. And, you know, I'm not shy about answering questions and such, unless, you know, they get a little too personal. But it's fun. You know, you can't be anywhere in Mayberry and not feel the love. And being around that is intoxicating. It's really wonderful to kind of see my dad through other people's eyes. And you know, it's a great way to kind of relive some good memories.
It's kind of fun when you were saying being anonymous too, because people say something and then all of a sudden, you know, I'll nudge them and go, "That's her brother," or you know, for you, that's her dad. You know.
I know. Well, and you know what? I have been able to meet some incredible people, like Clint Howard, Ron's brother. Pardon me as I adjust. He attends Mayberry Days. He has several times, and we've kind of reconnected. Karen Knotts, of course, has been doing it for years, and she has her own following. She does, she's written books, and she does a lot of different things. But Dreama Denver, Bob Denver's widow. Bob Denver was in one episode of the Andy Griffith Show, and Dreama comes and attends these events, and people love it. People love the relatively famous people.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun. And I've been very fortunate to have met a lot of people that were either producers or directors or some relative of some form. And I have new friends for life. I have a whole new family of friends who are not,
Yeah.
necessarily super famous. So it's great. It's great.
Well, Clint's kind of what someone just asked, like, who's the white whale that you really want on the show? And I've always said, I want Clint Howard on the show. I don't know if he's humorous enough to be billed as Ron Howard's brother, but I think Clint's got great stories.
He has great stories. So there's another thing that I get to participate in, and that is the cruise to Mayberry. And I'm serious. It's a Carnival cruise ship. There are different ships each year, but they leave usually they were leaving out of Charleston, South Carolina. It's been going on for like 17 years. And upcoming this late October, it will be my 6th year of going on that. And Clint, the reason I bring that up is Clint, one of the guests one year. And it was, it's kind of cool. It's fun. He does have great stories, and, there's usually about 100 participants that sign up for the cruise because they want to be in the Mayberry section.
Yeah.
We're all in the lounge or, watching episodes, doing different things. And, Clint has been there, so it's good. It's amazing how widespread and continued, like you were saying. I mean, this has been going on since 1960.
Wow.
And it's on TV every day, every single day.
I think that it is the only show that literally has run every day for, I think it's like the last 30 or 40 years. Somewhere it's been running every day. So when you decided you didn't want to get into the business, what path did you take? What was your life like?
Well, yeah, interesting. When I was, let me think. I worked in the hotel business for several years and met my future husband, or I should say my future ex-husband. But anyway, we moved to Colorado in 1983, and we got married. I had a child, and that was kind of what I did. I loved that. That was what I wanted. I always wanted to have children. Even when I was a child, I wanted to be a mom. So I've lived in Colorado since 1983, and then I had 2 more daughters with my second husband. And what I did a lot was volunteer work. I did a lot of volunteer work with kids' schools, but also hospitals and things like that. And I worked actually for hospice for 10 years, which I loved. And that was more recently. I went back to work for a while, worked for a brokerage company, and now I live out in some land, out in a very rural area. 2 of my daughters live in Colorado still. They're within an hour of me. I have 2 grandkids. And then my middle daughter moved to San Francisco about a year ago. So I've got 3 daughters and 2 grandkids, and I'm, right now I took up ballroom dancing a couple of years ago. So I do a lot of that. I
That's
love
awesome.
it. It's great.
I actually didn't try. I was kind of working a little bit with a ballroom in Charlotte about doing a reality show with ballroom, this particular ballroom dancing. It didn't ever come around, but we talked about it. So you need to go to my hometown. It's not ballroom dancing, but they have a dance called the Shag. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Oh, Carolina Shag. Oh, yes. I love watching that. I mean, that's what got me interested in even dancing at all, was watching people dance, and that was actually one of them that I loved watching. Shag.
It's the only place I've ever been in the world where this little like 4-club spot off of Main Street.
Yeah.
At certain times of the year, you will see 50 to 90-year-olds dancing all night long, going to the beach the next day, dance on the beach, go to the club and dance again all night long. I mean, I try to explain to people, and they're like, what? And I'm like, no, it's not the young kids. It's your grandma and your dad.
They grew up with it. I had a friend from that area, and he would talk about it all the time. And, I do not do that dance, but, I would love it. I just love watching dancing. But yeah, the Shag is, definitely very cool, very fun. All right, so do you shag? Do you do it?
I fake it. My mom's in the Shaggers Hall of Fame posthumous. She passed away when she was younger, before it really kind of took off. So they gave her a posthumous Hall of Fame, and I kind of fake it. Growing up, I was not a fan. I was, disco, and that was my rebellion, was to not like beach music.
Well, I can understand that. I can understand that absolutely. It's kind of like when you're pigeonholed into something. It's like, no, not for me. Yeah. So I get it.
Okay. Crazy question. What's your take on the new Matlock with Kathy Bates?
Kathy Bates. It's so funny. When I first heard the whisper of that, I was like, what? It was just unfathomable. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And of course, myself, like the rest of the world that heard about it, probably made the assumption that it was somehow connected. And it apparently is not, but they still kind of, sort of hint, or they did maybe in the first episode, like, no, I'm not that Matlock. I think it's great. I love Kathy Bates. So it's really cool to see her doing something. And she's very similar. Her character is very similar, I think, to Ben Matlock. But then I was a huge Columbo fan growing up, and I love those kind of detectives with their sort of stealth way of beating, not beating around the bush, but getting to the point of the matter and solving the crime. So I think it's great. I've not really watched it, but I've heard great things about it. I watched part of one episode, and there's so many things to do. Like sitting and watching TV is just not something I do a lot.
I don't watch a lot anymore. Maybe it's the age. It's like trying to stream something. I get so frustrated. I just want to turn the TV on and watch what I want to watch, and not spend 40 minutes looking for it. But
yeah,
your dad. Not to go back to your dad so much, but he had this amazing career as an actor. What was life like in Hollywood for you? And we talked about being in the beach in the summer, where he was just kind of Joe. What was it like in Hollywood growing up? And did you hang out with other kids of famous people?
A few. Yes. So first off, we lived in the Valley. We lived in the San Fernando Valley, specifically in Toluca Lake, which at the time in the early 60s, well, probably until about 30 years ago, was a very small sort of bedroom community. There were a lot of celebrities that lived there, and Bob Hope lived there. Frankie Avalon, the list is a mile long. And it has since become a bit of haven for celebrities and such. I think George Clooney lives nearby. But my mom and dad basically, I guess, had decided that we were not going to be in the spotlight. They did not want us kids to be, kind of displayed out there. They were very protective over my brother and I. It was just my brother and I. And so we went to dinner, we did things like that. And in the heyday, during the run of the show, 60 to 68, we couldn't go anywhere without people, kind of wanting autographs. Now they just take selfies and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure autographs as well. But there really wasn't the paparazzi, if you will, as there, came to be later on. So we kind of hung out on the weekends and living in Southern California, we had a swimming pool. So we swam. My dad was very interactive. We did, he would swim with us or hang out with us in the pool and barbecue, like I said, on the weekend. I went to school with a lot of kids of very famous parents. It was a private school that I went to, and I'm going to name drop Paul Newman's daughter, Buddy Ebsen's daughter, George Papard's daughter, not to mention a slew of, directors, producers, kids, and, that's just where where we all went to school. Later at the high school I went to, there were also a bunch, but I don't know, but it seemed as though it wasn't like, you go hang out with the celebrities' kids. And I was starstruck. I remember Don, my dad was definitely, he and Don were best friends. And Don would come to the house. Jack Dodson, who played Howard Sprague, would come to the house. Ken Berry came to the house. George Lindsay came to the house frequently as friends. And so they were just buddies, pals. And I remember I played pool with them. They taught me how to play pool. So, I didn't know any different, honestly. I didn't know any different. And I guess the one thing I'll take back is that we did live in a neighborhood that did have celebrities, but that wasn't the vibe. It wasn't like, ooh, the celebrities all live here. But John Wayne's son, Michael Wayne, lived right around the corner from us. And I played with his Michael Wayne's kids, or as I like to say, John Wayne's granddaughters, but it wasn't a big deal. Nobody was singled out. We were not in Beverly Hills. Karen Knotts pretty much grew up in Beverly Hills. And, again, we were in the Valley. The Valley was...
Yeah. Toluca Lake was the kind of the hot, like you said, the quiet hotspot for celebrities. Like you said, Bob Hope. And it was just a beautiful little niche of a place that kind of didn't get the tourists that Beverly Hills got.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ken Berry, and it brought back, I forgot that before Vanna was ever famous, when we were in high school, my dad was friends with a gentleman grew up with a gentleman named Mark Southern. He was Teddy Britt growing up, but he was from Dillon, South Carolina, and he was the music editor on Mayberry RFD. And my parents got to go out and go on the set, and Ken Berry, Mama had on like this blonde wig, and Ken Berry came run up to her like, "Have we met before?" He looked, he was all hitting on him. Dad's looking at him like, "Dude, I'm standing right here."
Wow. So, what was it? I just got to ask, what was it like for you when Vanna, started her career? I mean, did you feel like you were in the shadow? Did you feel like you were kind of pushed in the corner and ignored?
It was different. I was in my 20s and I've shared it before, not in the best shape. I was kind of a lot of drugs and alcohol back then. So it was my ego was probably like, I wanted to be more important than I was, and so there was a shadow. There was no resentment. It wasn't like I was mad at her. There was just the tinge of jealousy or or trying to think I'm cooler than I was because she was my sister. But it's definitely, it's fun to be, like we talked about, being anonymous and hearing people tell stories or say something, and then they realize who you are. Or walking through an airport and watching as you pass, and you see that you watch their recognition, but by then you've already passed, right?
Right. That's funny. Can I ask, what's the age difference between you and Vanna?
3 years. She's three years older.
Oh, okay. So did
she
you
looks
go
younger.
to together?
We did. And I was
different.
I was Vanna's brother even back then.
Vanna's brother. I mean, she's strikingly beautiful and obviously, gets attention wherever she goes. I'm sorry, I'm interviewing you now, by the way.
It's okay. Hey, it's what the conversation's about.
I was sharing your podcast with a couple of friends, and they kind of looked it up, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. That is a really fun concept that you're doing. It is. It's different. It's not the typical.
Yeah. Look, nothing's original, but it's a fun part. I think that if just I've seen some I say regular people, not related to someone famous, try to do it, and it's like, look, I can relate to some of the things you're saying, depending on the person, obviously, but I think it kind of qualifies. Like I've been under that shadow and clawing for that spotlight or the sunshine,
Right. Well, since you shared that piece of your past, my brother did not do real well with that. He not only had the shadow of our father, he had the shadow of Opie, and Opie being the most wonderful child that ever set foot on the earth. It was very difficult for my brother to compete with that. He could not compete with that. And I think that and all sorts of other things. He had his issues with drugs and such, and he actually died at age 38 as a result.
That's young.
And it was tragic. It was very, very tragic. But I think that he tried best he could to be, top dog, and he just wasn't, and for whatever reasons too, it wasn't like, of course, our father loved him and did things with him, and he was a parent, and dad was to my brother, but it kind of went sideways, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I could see that because as a son, you really want to impress your father, your father to say, I'm proud of you and this and that. And, my dad alcoholism ran in his family, but he didn't understand the drug part. And he was always like, he was always proud of me. I look back and go, I was the one that was not a great son. And I look at my son today, like, I want him to know, dude, you are enough. You're loved. You don't have to make $1 million. You don't have to do this. You could be a ditch digger and I'm going to be proud of you as long as you are happy and understand that you're loved.
Right. I mean, I do believe in unconditional love. And I think that is something that it's a hard concept to understand if you're a kid and you're trying to get attention. And if you don't get the attention you need, positive attention, you kind of go the other way and goes, well, any attention is good. So I might as well just run wild and do whatever the heck I want. So, I mean,
Speaking,
that's a simple way of putting it. But
did you read The Boys, Ron and Clint's book?
I have it. I started reading it. I've got it. And every time I go to a Mayberry event, when I know Clint's going to be there, I'm like, oh, I'm going to pack the book and take it. Cause I want Clint's autograph in the book, and I'll send it to Ron and maybe, or actually ask his publisher. I'm not in touch with Ron Howard.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can do that. But I looked through the book. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of depth
there really
to
is.
it. And,
and Clint went down a different path. I mean, like he's very honest in the book about his drug and alcohol use, and it's fun to hear them tell the same story from different perspectives. And Clint's like, I was high as a kite. I don't remember it, and Ron's, of course, elaborating. And
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, is, their whole family was in the business. Rance and Jean Howard and their parents. And my dad absolutely adored them. He loved them. I think he loved them as much as for the people, the kind-hearted people they were, but also because they were incredible parents and raised incredible kids, sons.
Yep.
Who really, they really did something with their lives, which is wonderful. We would stop by their house on occasion back probably in the late 60s. We would go to, it might have been after, it must have been after the show was over. So it must have been like early 70s. They still lived in Toluca Lake, Burbank area. My dad would just like drop in on them, when they were all home. The boys were teenagers, I guess. And, we were always welcomed. I mean, we didn't do this frequently, but on occasion would drop by when we were having dinner nearby, and, very welcoming, kind people. And, it's been fun I had to reintroduce myself to Clint. I mean, Clint, I met Clint a few times, met Ron a few times. And the first time I was at Mayberry Days, Clint was there and we were staying at the Hampton Inn Hotel. And I had to go up to Clint and introduce myself. And, and so ever since then, we always take a picture every year when he's there. And, he's a good guy. He's a great guy. And it's fun. I'm glad that I've gotten to know him a little bit, and it's fun. It's fun.
So we were connected through Chris Hudson, who did the documentary Mayberry Effect and was part of Mayberry Man, the movie. The Mayberry Effect documentary was like me very truthful and really just gave you that feeling of what the town must have been like. How does that relate to you? I mean, when you were approached about them or seen part of them, what was your thoughts on both of those?
Well, so when I first heard of it, I was down in in Mount Airy, and Court and Stark Howell, whose father, as you know, had been in the show. They were talking about it, and Greg Shell, Ronnie Shell's son, was also part of the initial production team. And they'd asked me if I would, they kind of told me about it and said, oh, hey, would you do a 10-second blurb on video about this? We're going to do this show, this movie, the Mayberry Man movie, and we would love for you to give us a, soundbite. So I'm like, sure. And I had no idea what it's like if somebody asked me to do something that's innocuous, I'm going to say yes. I have no reason to say no. So I did. And then, it was probably 2-3 years later, or maybe 2 years, where they started filming it in 2020 during the height of COVID. And I would have been in. I did support it. I was a supporter, and if you supported with a financial donation, you could get a part in the movie, a speaking role, possibly a crowd scene. And I did support some, but I wasn't going to fly to North Carolina during COVID, so I wasn't in it, and I don't regret not being in it. I really enjoyed the movie. I really did. I think it touched on the essence and the heart and soul of Mayberry, and Chris Hudson, the Mayberry effect. I mean, it definitely incorporated that feeling. I've probably seen it 5 times because they had showings at different events and such, and I loved it. And there, other than Chris Stone, the lead character, well, and Karen Knotts had a little part in it. These were all tribute artists and such that basically held up the show. The Floyd, the Barney characters, and I think they did a phenomenal job. The problem was trying to find funding. Well, the challenge, I should say, the challenge has been trying to find funding, and because it was crowdfunded, and doing the series also. I was I was on the outside. I was on the periphery of it. I wasn't in it, but I helped support it and be a producer, if you will. And, I appreciate the hard work and effort that went into what they were doing, the people steering the ship. And it's not, taken off, I think, as well as they would have liked. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn.
Yeah, that's okay. It'll come around. So we've talked a lot about your dad's acting and some about you. Now, my mother had an signed autographed album of your dad's that got stolen from me in LA, unfortunately, which was one of my prized possessions. But your dad was known as a comedian and a singer. Really quickly, before our timer, talk a little bit about that, and do you follow in any of those footsteps?
I have no musical talent whatsoever. My dad was a music major, and there was always music playing in our house. Always. He always had a music closet. Albums and then cassettes, 8-tracks, running the gamut of the musical technology world. And he loved to sing. And when he did his shows in Vegas or Tahoe, half of it was music. And Glenn Campbell, we did spend time with Glenn Campbell and his kids one year when they were doing a show at Harrah's in Lake Tahoe. Tennessee Ernie Ford came to our house and played the banjo, and I got to hang out. Although at the time I didn't know how incredibly famous he was and well known, but my dad, he absolutely loved music. He loved gospel music. He loved every musical genre, I should say, except rock and roll. In fact, we were not allowed to play rock and roll in the home musical closet, if you will. So, I thought it was absolutely wonderful that my father won a Grammy at age 70. It's phenomenal. He was so proud of that. He was so very, very proud of his later in life musical ventures, and the music video he did with Brad Paisley, Waiting on a Woman, that won awards in the country music arena. And I tried piano lessons, and when your father is a musical genius of a sort, and you're practicing your little, chopsticks or whatever on the piano, it isn't going to fly that you're not going to get some criticism from the master.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
I gave up on it. It's like, I wish I hadn't. I wish I knew how to play. I played the recorder in school,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I could get by. I was in the orchestra at my
Did
little school.
did he ever get tired of having to do the routine, or did he just ever give up on it? What it was football?
I don't know. Well, I mean, that really, skyrocketed his career in some ways, his comedic career and such. And I think, I don't know how many times he performed it live, to be honest with you. I don't think it was like he did that. He did it, I think, for some local, oh gosh, I'm like shrine club things and that kind of deal. And I know there's a video of him performing it at Chapel Hill at the football stadium. And I honestly, I do not know when that was, but I know it was, amazing. And the people were thrilled that he did it, but it wasn't part of his, like I do not believe that he performed that at any of the Vegas shows, anything from like 1970 on. I don't believe that was part of his repertoire, if you will. So,
Okay.
but no, he loved that. He loved the Romeo and Juliet was the flip side, the
Yep.
B side. What it was football, and he was he told the best jokes, and I wish I could tell a joke the way he could. Yeah, in fact, I tried to recently, actually, at a Mayberry event in Ohio in April, just a few months ago, and I was trying to tell a small group of people one of his jokes that he would tell pretty much every show he did. No, it didn't stick
Didn't work,
because
huh?
no, anyway, but no, I don't think he got tired of any of the things that he did that he was really proud of.
Right.
And thankfully he had enough say in the different things he did, whatever it was, a TV show, a movie, musical, he had input, like in the scripts, the Andy Griffith Show scripts. He did a lot of writing that was uncredited. And he really was a genius in many, many ways, and multi-talented. So,
Extremely, extremely talented. Okay, we're running out of time.
oh gosh, that's not that
It
fast.
went fast. Now we're actually a little longer than I normally go. It's because it was such great stories. What's the one question that I didn't ask you, or the one thing you really wanted to say that we didn't talk about?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's tough. That's big. I would like to say, I guess, that I'm really happy that my kids, my daughters, were able to have some time with Dad before he passed away. It was not a lot. They were in North Carolina and we're here in Colorado, but the few times that we were able to be all together were really memorable and wonderful. And I'm incredibly grateful that my girls got to see that, got to get to know their grandpa.
That's extremely important. It doesn't happen a lot. Dixie, this has been great. I sincerely appreciate your time today, and I look forward to our paths crossing sometime in the future.
Thanks, Chip. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. That was so cool, man. Dixie was amazing. I'm so happy she agreed to be on the show. Her father was a huge part of my life, and as millions of people. And you mentioned the fact that I went to a church Sunday school that was taught using the Andy Griffith Show years ago. I want to thank Dixie. I want to thank our sponsor, visit myrtlebeach.com. If you're looking for the perfect Family vacation, be sure to go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. If you happen to be traveling with an autistic or sensory sensitive child or an adult, check out the TV show on Peacock called Traveling the Spectrum that talks about how to travel in Myrtle Beach with autism and sensory sensitive. Go to visitmyrtlebeach.com for that. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com. I want to thank Nelco Media, our production company. I want to thank Nelco Comics for our great comic book location. If you're looking for the crazy comic, come check out Nelco in San Antonio. They probably have it. I want to thank you, the viewer, the listener. Without you, I wouldn't have a podcast. If you're related to someone famous, or you know someone related to someone famous who might make a great guest, or you want to be a guest, reach me at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. That's podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. Until the next episode, thanks.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.